Hello everyone, this is Taheerah, and today I'm going to be recording a quick video to show you how to make this Christmas tag. It's very simple, but there are a few tricks along the way, so hopefully you'll learn a few different techniques as well. Let's get started. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to be die cutting our Christmas tree. I'm going to be starting with this tree die from the In the Meadows paper tray ink die collection. And the trick that we're going to be employing with the die cutting is that this star is not part of the actual die. So we're going to be using a little trick to not cut the cardstock all the way so that we can stamp our star and trim that out afterwards in one piece. So what we're going to be doing is we'll be getting our die cutting machine. I've got a Big Shot, and what we're going to be doing is taking a piece of cardstock. This is Shimmer Cream cardstock by Paper Tray Ink. And the trick that we're going to be doing is, first of all, adhering the tree just lightly in place to the cardstock with a piece of washi tape. And what we're going to be doing when we die cut is we're going to not be putting the end of the tree on the actual cutting surface. So what I mean by that is I'm going to take my cutting plate, I'm just going to flip this over so that you can see what I mean. We're going to edge the die just past the die cut platform and flip it back over and just pop that in place on our platform. Now the die can shift a little bit in movement, so actually before I do that, what I'm going to do is line that up again, just take a piece of washi tape and just lightly secure that to the actual cutting plate. I'm going to load my die cut machine, put on my cutting plate and just die cut that through. And what we're going to find is that die in fact has not cut all the way through the tree. We can remove that and we can see that right now. So that's the first thing that we're going to be doing. The next thing is to actually stamp that star, and I'm going to be using this stamp set from Gina K. It's called City of David, and we're going to be using this star image here. So I'm just going to be taking out the stamp, putting it on my acrylic block, and I'm going to be inking up the star with Delicata Gold ink. I'm just going to stamp that over the tree, just mind my head. Like so. Now I actually want to put a little bit of embossing on this star just to seal that that ink in place and also give it a little bit of extra shine. I'm going to be using the Ancient Gold Enchanted Gold embossing powder. This is a very pale gold with lots of little flecks of glitter in it, so it gives a lovely effect. So just going to be lightly sprinkling some of that embossing powder on. Just tipping the excess back into the jar. And we're just going to heat emboss that. Now, a lot of people will tell you when you heat emboss, the important thing is to get your embossing gun good and hot before you actually emboss the powder. And that will help the cardstock not warp. Just going to heat emboss that. You can also heat the cardstock from underneath, just in case you get any warping. That's all done. As I said, it's a very delicate embossing effect, but it just gives a little bit of extra to the design. So I'm actually going to leave that tree partially die cut in place like so while I start with my stamping. If you look at the original die here, we've got quite a few different images being stamped onto the tree. The first one I'm going to use is this string of beads from the Paper Smooches Holly Jolly set. The good thing about clear stamps is that they can be bent and manipulated past their normal kind of shape. So I'm going to take this actual stamp and onto my acrylic block, I'm going to just curve it much more lightly than the original. I'm going to be stamping with Stampin' Up's Blushing Bride ink. If you can hear any crazy meowing in the background, that's just one of my cats having his morning run around, just being completely nuts, so please excuse him. So just going to start stamping my string of beads now. The first one. I'm just going to be continuing this design all the way down the tree. I always take my ink pad to my stamp rather than the other way around. That just helps me get a good even inking of the stamp, and also just make sure that I'm getting the areas that I want to. So just a couple more of these. And we're all done. Right, so the next thing is all of these little baubles. But before we do that, I just want to give a little bit of extra spritz to the glitz to the cardstock. So I'm going to be just splattering on some Perfect Pearl mist. This is in the colour Perfect Pearl. So just going to shake it up good and proper. I know a lot of people put their pieces of cardstock in a box before they splatter, but I'm a little bit more cowboy about it. I'm just going to flick it on like so. I don't want too much, just a few splats here and there. Right, so for the large bauble, I'm going to be using this stamp, again from Holly Jolly. And there are several different colours going on my tree. We're just going to go through those one at a time, get them all in place. So the first colour I'm going to be using is Crisp Cantaloupe by Stampin' Up. I'm just going to add a couple of those onto my tree. The next colour is this kind of pale green. I didn't have exactly the same pale green that I wanted, so I'm going to be using a combination of two colours, the Mint Hint from Studio Calico and Pistachio Pudding from Stampin' Up. And my trick when I do this kind of stamping is to get both ink pads ready. I'm actually going to ink my stamp face down onto one of the inks first, then a couple of taps on the second one, and that just imparts a slightly different colour than you would get if you were only stamping with one of them. I quite like this trick for just giving a extra value to your inks collection, and I mix a lot of colours this way if I want a custom colour of my own. Right, so the next colour I'm going to be doing is the silver. I'm going to be using Hero Art's silver ink, It's probably my favourite silver ink of the bunch. I just love the coverage and the colour is really true. So just a couple of the silver baubles here and there. And you don't need to be too precious about the positioning of these and the colour arrangement. We've got a lot of colours going on the tree, and each one of these will be a little bit unique every time, which I guess is good. I'm going to go back to the Delicata Golden Glitz ink now and add some gold baubles. Almost there with all my inks now. I'm just going to be doing the sort of teal colour next. For that, again, I'm going to be mixing a custom colour using the Colour Theory Emerald City ink from Studio Calico and the Paper Tray Ink Ocean Tides ink. So again, just getting both of my ink pads ready to use. And for this one, I'm actually going to be inking the Emerald City first, and then a couple of taps of Ocean Tides. Dye inks are quite forgiving, I find, so I don't really worry too much about contaminating the colours on my ink pads. If you are worried, you can just clean the stamps off with a piece of tissue afterwards, and they'll be just fine. If I said stamps, I actually meant ink pads, sorry. So the final colour I'm going to use is the Red Royal ink from Hero Arts, and I've left this for last because I want to give my stamp a good clean afterwards to try and prevent any kind of staining. You're always going to get a bit of staining on clear stamps eventually. It's one of those things that you just can't avoid, but I try and keep my stamps as stain-free for as long as possible. Just one more here, I think.